Hi, this is Sean Comley from Epic Games, and this is a video on how to use an Xbox controller to control a camera crane in RigRail using enhanced inputs and the LiveLink protocol. So this is what we're going to make today. I've got a Xbox controller hooked up to my computer, and I'm pulling the triggers around to move it up and down the RigRail, and I'm pulling some of the joysticks around to be able to move the camera crane in the RigRail. You can see some of the data being updated in our LiveLink virtual subject here as I'm moving the controller around. Great. So let's dive into it. Let's make a new level here. Move the Xbox controller out of the way. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to go right click and go to input and select input action. Let's name this. Here, double click. And we want this information to be a float. So right now, what we're going to do is we are defining the input action of our right trigger, and we want the value to come out of that to be a float value. So save that, copy and paste, and let's make the left trigger. Left. There we go. And that one should be a float as well. Great. And then let's go back to input and make a input mapping context. RigRail. There we are. And then here is where we're going to set what button does what. So let's go to left trigger, and let's map that to our left trigger right there. And then let's add our right trigger. And then this is what we'll call later on inside of our blueprints. Let's filter video, right trigger. Let's put this to right trigger. What's nice about these is that if you had like different controllers or keyboards or gamepads, you can set up, one input action to have multiple controls. And you don't have to keep kind of going here and duplicating over and over and over and over and over again. Let's save that. Great. Now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to create a editor utility actor so that we can drag it into the scene so that we can then start to communicate with things inside of our level. So let's go here, go to editor utilities, editor utility blueprint, editor utility actor. Let's name that here. Double click. And now we're just going to set up some of our enhanced input stuff here. So let's go over to the event graph here. We don't need any of this stuff. Let's full screen. And let's make a custom event. And we'll just name this proxy construction. And we're going to want to fire this event when we construct the actor. So let's go ahead and call that custom event. And basically, so this event will fire, let's drag this in a level. This event will fire as soon as the level opens and it makes this actor. So in here, this is just going to be some like boilerplate enhanced input stuff. So let's set receive. I always misspell receive. Receives editor input. Let's click that to on. Let's get input component here. And let's push the component. There we go. And then the target is going to be the enhanced input editor subsystem. Enhanced input editor. There we are. So this is going to be the subsystem that we're using to map the Xbox controller buttons. And then let's go to start consuming input. Must be straight lines. And then we will add a mapping context as well. and you want the message. There we go. Here. And now here is where you go and you grab this IMCRR video right here. And you set that. And then for options, let's make modify context options. And we're going to want ignore all press keys until release to off and force immediately to on. Great. Compile. So I've got my blueprints to save on success. If you're somebody that likes to keep it on never, make sure that you hit the save button. But so every time I hit compile, if it doesn't error, I'm saving. Now let's go get those enhanced inputs that we have here, the input actions. So let's get left trigger video. There we go. And let's get our right trigger video. There we go. Cool. So now we are pulling in here, we are pulling this information in here. So when we trigger the triggers, and when we complete the trigger, it'll send this information out of this action value. Now, why we are using a editor utility actor is that then we can set up some event dispatchers. And since this actor lives in the level, we can broadcast this information out into the level. And you can use, different blueprints or different things to catch this information. In our case, we're going to be using a LiveLink virtual subject to catch the information. So let's go ahead and set up those event dispatchers. So let's just click to add there and then do left video. And then we want to go up here and we want to add an input. And this will be left trigger value. Make that a float because we made it a float here. So it's going to be kicking out float information. And then if you pull this in here and do call, we want to map our triggered and our completed. So we want to be able to say, okay, it's been pressed down, and then, okay, it's been released. And then we add our action value. So let's make one for the right trigger now. So ED, right trigger video. And then same thing, go and right trigger value. Okay, call. And then just the same process here. Great. Okay. So now when we pull those things out, we're going to be sending this out into our world here. Perfect. So now after this, let's go make our LiveLink virtual subject, and then we'll make a camera crane. So here, let's go to LiveLink. And if you don't have this, you might have to go enable the plugin. LiveLink right there. Make sure you do that. Let's add a virtual subject, and we're going to do basic role here. There we go. LiveLink, RigRail. Awesome. Double click you. There we are. Okay. So now we're going to set up our LiveLink virtual subject, which is basically the information protocol that we're going to use to translate the values between the Xbox controller and the enhanced input, and then being able to convert that to information that the camera and RigRail understand and can use. So let's go ahead. We're going to want to bring in our editor utility actor to be able to pull some information off of that. So click and add a new variable, and let's do spoof. That's not how you spell video. And then the type will be spoof video right there. Let's go ahead and set that to public so that we can set that in the LiveLink virtual subject later. So go ahead and pull that in. So now we can get everything that we've done in here. Let's grab these left trigger event dispatch and the right trigger event dispatch, and let's bind those. Bind left There we go. So bind this one, and then we're going to want to get the right trigger as well. Bind right trigger. There we are. And this is going to be on event initialize. So as soon as we initialize the LiveLink virtual subject, we're going to bind these things in here. There we go. And the event, drag off there. Let's add a custom event, and we'll just call this CE left trigger, and then same thing. There we are. And let's promote these. Promote and promote. So now on initialize, we're going to bind this information in here, and then we're going to use a custom event to fit it into both of these variables. And then the information in these variables is what we're going to use to move and set the rig rail. Now let's make an array to store these values in. It's going to be an array of floats. There we are. Let's set this array here. And for now, we're just going to give it 2 spots. We don't need this yet. There we go, because right now we only have 2 values so far. And then what we want to do is want to update virtual subject static data here. And then split the struct pin so that we can get to the array, and then promote this variable here. And we can compile, so we can add, and then left trigger, and then right trigger. Okay. Now we need to add the information on update. So basically, as we're ticking, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to set these array elements. So here, let's go set element, set array element. Let's get this. There we go. And now let's get this. And the left trigger will be in slot 0 of this array. And then the right trigger will be in right trigger value in slot 1. There we are. And now let's update virtual subject frame data. Let's split this struct pin. Here we get the frame data, property values, and just plug that into here. Okay, so let's go over here and see if it's working. So let's add our virtual subject, which is this one right here that we just made. Let's add our spoof here. Here we go. And now you can see the numbers changing when I'm hitting the left and right trigger. Here, it's going from 0 to 1. I'm watching the LiveLink input values here. So perfect. So now that we have these float values coming into our level and into our LiveLink virtual subject, we can pull this out and we can use it to control our rig rail and camera crane. So for right now, let's go and make a rig rail. Rig rail. So let's go BP video. Okay. So here is our rig rail. Right here, let's go to the event graph. Since we've added LiveLink, now we can add a LiveLink controller here. And let's add events on updated. And this will basically tick inside of this blueprint here, looking for incoming information. So let's go to evaluate LiveLink frame. Here, the role is going to be basic role. And let's promote this so that we can set this on the object, just in case you end up having more than one LiveLink virtual subject. So let's promote that. There we go. And now let's set current position on rail here. Split this struct pin. And then we want to split this struct pin again, here frame data. And now we have our array that we made in our LiveLink virtual subject. And we can get, so let's get a copy. And 0 was our, I think we mapped our, where is it? Here it is. 0, we just mapped the left trigger value to it. So let's go ahead and compile this. Let's bring this, that's it. Bring this into the level. Let's make this a little bigger so that we can see what's going on. Go here and shut this down. There we are. And where's our rig rail? Do we need to compile this? Did we make this public? No. There we go. Set our virtual subject here. We named it virtual. All right. So now, if we hold down the left trigger, you can see the left trigger going. We are controlling this rig rail here. Now, this isn't good enough. We're going to want to get the position and add to the position and basically be able to move it up and down the rail. Now, one thing that I want to note, we can pull these float values into the rig rail here itself and kind of do all this logic and math in here. I would recommend doing the logic and math in your LiveLink virtual subject and then sending it out. For one main reason is that if you're ever going to be on a multi-user session where, say like you're on a stage and there's multiple machines, how you send this information around is you rebroadcast this LiveLink data, this subject, right? Which is going to be rebroadcasting this information here, not necessarily what is coming out of here, right? So, and the reason why I'm saying to do it all in here is because let's say, you have 3 computers on the multi-user session and, each computer, the beginning position of this rig rail might be a little bit different. Say it got nudged here or there, then you're sending, relative values here. You're saying, take the position that it's at and plus 0.25, right? So you might end up with this rail position being slightly different on each computer. Or let's say one computer is take recording or it has a VCam going on and all this stuff, and it's running a little slower, right? So sending relative values to that slower computer, you're going to have a bad time. What you want to do is you want to send absolute values to every computer. You want to say, go to 0.25 for this rig rail, go to 0.5, go to 0.75. Don't add 0.1, add 0.1, add 0.1. If that doesn't make sense, then just stick with me and we'll show it. So now back in the LiveLink virtual subject, let's start doing some logic here for our rig rail. So let's unhook this one for now. And we'll just move you. We don't need you quite yet. So let's grab these triggers. So the left trigger, we're going to want it to move the rig rail backwards. And the right trigger, we're going to want to have it move the rig rail forwards. So let's get a multiply here. And let's reverse this by -1. There we go. Now let's add these two together. And all right. And now we want to go get this rig rail here and bring it into our blueprint. So let's go and add a variable, and we're going to go rig rail, and this is going to be the BP rig rail video. And here we go. Let's make it public so we can set it on the LiveLink virtual subject. Bring it in, and let's go get current position on rig rail. There we go. And then we are going to want to add these two together, set this as the value of index 0, compile, and we're already setting this. So now if we go onto our LiveLink virtual subject and we set the rig rail that we want to control, we should, now we are moving it back and forth. The problem is that if you see the values here, they're huge. And the rig rail goes from basically 0 to 1, not negative 7,000 to 2,000, whatever. So we need to go in and kind of help that thing out. First thing that we're going to want to do is let's go back over here to our rig rail and let's add a variable rig rail speed so that we can control the speed of how fast it goes up and down. So let's make that public. And let's go back here and let's go get, what did we call that? Rig rail speed. Get rig rail speed. Here we are. All right. So let's take you and let's multiply. Here we are. So we can, we should, let's compile, make sure that this is not 0. Otherwise, we're going to have a bad time. There we go. Let's multiply you there. And then we're going to want to clamp this because, and we want a float. Where are you? Where's float? Clamp. Float. Because the rig rail goes from 0 to 1. Now, plug that in there. And let's go back here and look. And now let's go on our rig rail here. And let's set the speed to 0.1. Now you see we're getting a little better. It's still pretty fast. Let's go to 0.01. There. And now if you look at our live link, we are going back and forth using our triggers. Left trigger and right trigger. And then this is the information being sent to the rig rail. And then this is also the information being broadcast over our multi-user session, right? We're not going here and saying, okay, +1, right? Where's I'm at? Saying like, okay, get the current position, and then, +0.1, +0.1, +0.1. We're sending absolute values there. So everything will line up over a multi-user session. Fantastic. Move you over here. It's not totally organized, but I will leave that alone for the video, even though it'll bother me. Let's hit C for comment, and let's do rig rail. Great. Now, when we come back, we're going to set up the camera crane on top of here.